all kinds of shit, and you're carrying that stuff up a really steep mountain just for the heck of it, just to stay in shape.
I'm watching Mark right here, and I'm seeing him being like, I chose the wrong career. We can wander our way over, you know, because this is Wandering Ways.
What's Bigfoot possibility? Alrighty.
Clink. Hey, man, you ready to get hot?
I got hot coffee right here. I'm in my hot office. I've nicknamed my athletic training room here Vegas because it's hot as hell. There are no clocks, and what happens here stays here. So,
well, that's what I'm not talking about. I'm saying, are you ready to talk fire? And not just the emoji.
No. I thought you were talking because it's hot. It's hot, always hot in here for me. But no, I'm excited for our guest today. We're talking wild fires. We've talked about fires before a few times. Piqued my interest, our interest enough that we went out and we got someone who has done it.
Yeah, and I'm super excited. Andrew Pepion is our guest. He is a wildland firefighter. He's had 6 seasons under his belt, which is just nuts and awesome and cool all at the same time. His dad was a smoke jumper for 30 years. It's in the blood system. It's in the veins. It's in the family conversations, the stories, the tales that are passed down through the generations. So we got some good stuff for you guys with him coming up. And, you know, it's got to be smart about fires. So we got to keep you guys educated.
Yeah. Shoot, what would Smokey say, right? Smokey would be out here trying to tell us to be smart. Only us, we can prevent forest fires. Although, as we'll talk about, forest fires are important.
Yeah, and we're not going to give it away why, because you got to listen for that part. And then you got to email us and say, hey, Zach, hey, Mark, I really appreciate that I waited and listened to the full podcast because you got some good stuff. But I really do. We really do appreciate you guys. If you have questions, you know, last week we had one. Calman gave us his top 5 wish list. Go ahead and shoot them our way. wanderingwayspodcast@gmail.com. WANDERWYSPODCAST@gmail.com. Boom. Hit that send button. Send it our way. Hey, if you got a cool adventure or story or just something you want to talk about, go ahead and let us know. Maybe we can have you on as a guest. You want swag, stickers, all that? We got it here. So just come our way.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you got any questions, any cool stories, you're into anything, please feel free to reach out. It doesn't have to necessarily be Wandering Ways Podcast @gmail.com. You can reach out to the Instagram, Wandering Ways Podcast. You can reach out to any of Zach's Instagrams, the Rougarou, Zach Gray of Quartz Lake, Zach Gray. There's got to be, you got what, like 17 other Instagram accounts. I don't know. You'll probably find him easy. Or you're more than welcome to reach out to me, the Reverend Marcus, @Reverend Marcus for Instagram. It's @Reverend Marcus for Twitter. If you want to check out my Twitter too, I love me some Twitter. So if you have any questions or anything like that, other than that, I'm grounded today. It's sitting here. I got my grounding cord on, unplugged. I'm ready for this interview. So.
I love it, man. I'm excited. We just been out in nature. I was just up in Sealy kayaking, looking at the beautiful mountains. And, I referenced this later in the podcast, but looking up at the mountains and seeing where the fire that was there recently just had burned. and the area it covered, and just making the mountains shine that snow from the winter just looked that much more beautiful as I'm sitting there out on the lake. Just made me think, we got to get talking about this stuff because this stuff's important. Smokey says, keep it green.
Exactly. Anything, let's heat things up, get things rolling here. So, you got anything else?
No.
All right.
Let's get fire emoji.
Yeah, we got some fire. We got a fire interview for you with Mr. Andrew. So anyways, we're here today with Andrew, our lovely guest here today. He's going to come on, talk about some wildland firefighting. That's the main topic today. But anyways, just to kind of jump into it right away, Andrew, if you want to introduce yourself, let everybody know anything that you may want our listeners to know about you, maybe what you're doing, any big projects you may have right now. Now's a good time before we start talking fire.
Gotcha. Well, my name is Andrew. I was born in Missoula, Montana. Grew up mostly in the Bitterroot Valley here. I grew up in Hamilton, went to Hamilton High School down here and stuff. I come from a long fire family, actually. My dad was a smoke jumper, a hot shot for a good time there, I think for 30 years. So, and my uncle was a firefighter. So, wildland firefighting has been pretty much a big part of my family. And, pretty much after high school, as I went to college, it was a good segue, pretty much went right in there. So
nice. Have you done any of the smoke jumping, or was that all your dad?
So that's all my dad, actually. Smoke jumping is one of those, it's a more specialized aspect of wildland firefighting.
Yeah, I had a graduate advisor during my master's degree. He used to do the smoke jumping up in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
So I've heard some of the stories, and I know a little bit about it, but I don't know. It sounds wild. I mean, fighting fires in general sounds pretty wild. So smoke jumping is just another aspect.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's very unique to Montana and the Western United States, for sure. I think there's only 400 smoke jumpers in total.
Oh wow! I didn't know there was
community. Yeah.
And what I like about it too, and this is how we're related to one another, is our Native American ancestral people have always fought fires, and a lot of smoke jumpers are actually Native American.
Yeah,
I find it's crazy, because it's such a small population when you look at all firefighting.
Yeah. There's a lot of natives in the firefighting community. I mean, there's a lot of firefighting crews who are based off of reservations, and they're actually funded by the Bureau of Land Management, BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So they actually have their own, tribally identified firefighting team, if you will, like firefighting crews.
Huh.
It's very interesting.
It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously your dad did it, but is that the only reason you got into firefighting, or was it kind of just how did you get into it? I guess is not what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. So, I've been exposed to through stories and stuff like that through my dad and stuff. But I've known some people who have actually taken that step, when they're going to college, say, I want to spend my summers making some money. So I threw in an application on USA Jobs, the government website, to get you in the door. And I started off at the West Fork Ranger Station, kind of a small, firefighting team there. And it just turned out to be this really cool thing where I get to hang out with these really cool people from all over the country, and we get to put out small little fires and stuff. And I figured, it's kind of a cool deal. I wonder what else there is to it.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. Where legitimately all over? Did you have people from I don't know, South Carolina, the South area?
For sure, yeah. There's people from Connecticut, New Hampshire,
Oh, wow.
all over the place, and they of course bring with them their own experience.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. To have, I didn't realize that it was like such a pull from different areas kind of job. I've always kind of just assumed, you know, say you're a Montana firefighter or an Oregon firefighter, you just happen to be in that area and they're like, we need people. And they're like, all right, I've got nothing to do. I'm already here type deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more broadly networked now. I mean, back in times past, it was a locally based thing. I mean, there's old stories of where they'd basically go to bars like in the 1970s and gather people. Hey, we got a fire. Get in this van, sign this piece of paper, and let's go fight this fire. But I think with things as they are now, it's everyone's invited pretty much. If you're interested, they'll call you and say, hey, if you're serious, this is when the season starts. Meet you at this duty station. Sometimes that's rural Montana, or you could be, I don't know, in the Los Angeles National Forests. It all depends.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that, you know, it is kind of more broad or more centralized and more controlled now. But so how many years have you been doing it?
So I counted the seasons, and I think six and a half seasons total.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you always been Montana?
Pretty much. I started out as what's called a firefighter type 2, which is just, you know, the entry-level firefighting job. And then moving up, you know, firefighter type 1, more leadership positions, you know, opportunities like that. Yeah, it definitely got me some places for sure.
Are there just the two types, the type 1, type 2 firefighter?
Essentially, yeah. So firefighter type 1 is typically someone with more experience under their belt. They've taken some extra training, and they're able to direct and lead small groups of firefighters.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's it like being on the front line? Like, you know, pun intended here. What's it like being in the fire?
It can be pretty exciting, you know, when you roll up to an IA, an initial attack, you know, where you get a fire call. Hey, we popped a smoke in the forest. You know, you roll up there and it's growing, it's hopping and popping. It's definitely an adrenaline, you know, pushing situation. It's, you know, you're getting out there cutting fire line as the fire is moving through the forest, bearing in mind all the safety things you need to take into consideration.
Oh yeah, I bet your mind's running 1,000,000 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by, like, is it cutting line is what you said?
Cutting line, yeah. So it all depends on the fuel type. So here in West Montana, there's, you know, obviously timber stands, but there's understory growth that needs to be kind of dealt with. So they'll have a team of sawyers with people with chainsaws cutting down brush and stuff, basically clearing out a swath to devoid an area of fuel, in which then diggers, we call them diggers, people with Pulaskis, shovels, scrapers, and they'll scrape a fire line, which is basically like a dirt path to where the fire can't burn through.
Okay. That's
the essence of wildland firefighting, is containing the fire. You're cutting a line around it. You know.
Oh, so that's why they make such a big deal about the containment number when you're listening to the news. It's all about how well those lines are working. Is that what it would be?
Typically, or how much, if it's a big fire, like if it's on the news, it's typically going to be a big fire. So we're talking like tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, you know, of acres. So it takes some time to make line around that.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Percent line actually completed, percent line of line that's been completed that's actually holding, you know, has been burned over. So
How big are these, like, the holes the diggers do?
So it's not so much a hole, but the standard is 18 inches
18 inches deep or wide?
wide, 18 inches wide. That's the bare minimum.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, for some reason I kind of figured it would be a lot bigger. 18 inches does not seem like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that would stop a fire.
It all depends on the weather and stuff, but typically, if the wind's not blowing, it's most fuel types in the Western United States, Western Montana included, 18 inches is pretty sufficient. It's enough to stop ground fire. Obviously, if there's a big gust of wind that blows stuff over, or if the fire takes to the canopy, then obviously it's not going to work. But 18 inches is pretty sufficient.
Okay. Does that size get bigger depending, like, if there is going to be possibility of winds? Do you, like, you got to be like, guys, audible, we got to make a wider, like, trench? I'm still, what's the term for those dig hole lines?
It's a fire line.
Fire line.
Fire line width typically stays the same, 18 inches. But if we do anticipate, say, like a big weather event, a cold front coming in, something that's going to blow and probably most likely aggravate the fire, we'll defer to the saw teams, basically, and then it's the sawyer's job to cut more undergrowth away from the fire line.
Okay.
So that we don't have a great amount of fire right next to the fire line.
Yeah.
Sometimes that entails, heavy equipment.
Oh yeah, I bet. I've heard stories, because in California they use the inmates a lot for firefighting.
Yeah.
And I've heard the stories, they have all this, like, crazy brand new equipment that gets used one time out there. And then I don't know, I think it's how California runs it. Also, third party, I'm just listening to it from a guy that works in the penitentiaries down there and would, like, basically just watch these guys out there, make sure they're not, like, running off, the inmates.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, California's kind of its own situation out there. I mean, pretty historically, they have quite the fire season, so they actually have their own fire department, if you will, for wildland stuff. It's called Cal Fire.
Yeah.
You're right. They will employ a lot of inmate labor and stuff. But typically, those guys they're eager to be out. They're there for good reasons. They're nonviolent people. They just want to help stuff out. They're very friendly.
Oh yeah.
And stuff.
You have to be to get that job.
Yeah.
Right. So what was, like, your most common job on the fire line there? Were you the digger or the sawyer?
A little bit of both, actually. So while I was on the hotshot crew, the Bitterroot Hotshots, I would sometimes step into the role of being a sawyer if we needed extra help doing that. If it was just, say, really brushy or just required a whole bunch of clearing out before the digging team can get in there and construct fire line, I would do that. But for the most part, I would be what's called the lead Pulaski, one of the lead Pulaskis. So I don't know if you know what a Pulaski is.
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
Yeah. It's basically an axe blade with a fabricated hoe end on the back, like a grub end of a hoe. And so what you're doing with as a lead Pulaski guy, you're breaking the ground, breaking it up so the guys behind you can scrape that stuff away.
Oh, okay. It's kind of like when you see farmers till up their land.
Essentially, yeah. You're breaking through the sod. You're using that axe end to cut through roots and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that probably makes the digging a lot easier.
Sometimes, yeah.
Really? Do you hit a lot of rock? Have you hit a lot of rock up there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There's some places where you're mining for gold, man. It's just
Yeah.
you're getting nowhere, and you're just facing the prospect of, hey, we're gonna have to dig this whole line and these damn rocks for probably the next mile or two, over this next 10 days or something.
Oh, that would be kind of demoralizing.
Can be, but tell you what, it builds some character.
I
In
bet.
retrospect, when it's all done, you shoot the shit with your guys, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those brotherhoods and sisterhoods made up on those trips are fun.
Yeah,
yeah, I can.
That's what really makes it cool, man. It's just being with people who really you can trust to have your back.
Oh,
There's
nice.
people from all over the place, like I said, but they really want to be there. They're really motivated people from all kinds of backgrounds. It's just really cool, and you stay in touch with them well after your season is ended, or even if your fire career is ended.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I bet. It's one of those things because you guys go through the shit. You're gonna remember the crew that you went through it with.
Yeah, it's yeah.
So, how close do the fires get to like the lines?
Sometimes they'll burn right over it, or yeah, they'll burn right over it. Sometimes they'll burn right up to it.
More so like how when you guys are like digging them and clearing it out, how close are you to the fires?
So if typically, ideally, textbook speaking, the fire line should be constructed such that there's minimal unburnt fuel between the line and the fire. So typically right next to the fire.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, it's a different case if it's raging out of control. There's no way it can get that close to that amount of heat. But pretty darn close.
Yeah. Have you gotten burned at all, or like the hot flash because you're just next to that heat so much?
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where a group of trees would torch off, and the amount of heat from, say, a 40-foot, stand of timber going off within 100 feet, it's such that you can't be anywhere near that. You have to put your hands over your face, basically, and your shirt will be smoking because of the radiant heat.
Have you ever had to actually, what's it called, where you get the fire blanket and you go down and the fire passes over you? Have you ever had that?
Fortunately, no.
Oh.
Fortunately, that's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
They call it a fire shelter deployment.
Yeah.
And that occurs, unfortunately, when all safety measures that have been put in place have somehow gone wrong. So in firefighting, there's the system called LCES. So lookouts, communication, escape routes, and safety zones. All four of those elements are supposed to be in place even prior to engaging any sort of fire, even if it's the size of a car or, who knows how big. So a fire shelter deployment is typically when one or all of those things have failed, which is a pretty bad situation.
That's the oh shit button.
Yeah, it's typically if you're having to pull your fire shelter out, you're at high risk of being killed.
Oh snap!
Yeah, it's pretty extreme.
Yeah, I was curious if you ever got burned because I mean I kind of assumed you hadn't because you still have your eyebrows, so I wasn't sure in case you burned them off.
Yeah, well, you're playing with fire basically. You're working next to it, but on a hotshot crew, like a lot of the time, it's your job to actually start a fire, if you can believe that.
I'd
so our
heard
crew
that.
or other crews and other resources will construct a fire line with a whole bunch of unburnt fuel between the fire line and the fire, and then we'll go in there, and other crews will go in there with drip torches, all kinds of stuff, basically to burn that fuel and create a buffer between the main fire and the fire line. So sometimes in that process, you'll light your pants on fire on accident or something. And
Yeah. Are you guys using that flamethrower like Elon Musk made?
No, I have heard stories about flamethrowers being used, but I've never seen them personally. That would be pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it would be nuts. I've seen the one like Elon Musk made that one for his boring company, and I've seen people like use it. It's pretty it's kind of silly. So you keep mentioning like the hotshot crew. Are there
Yeah.
different kinds of crews, the hotshot versus like maybe some? I mean, obviously, smoke jumper is totally different, but for like an average basic fire, are there different types of crews that have different?
Yes, yes, there is. So back to where I mentioned the different types of firefighters, firefighters type 1 and 2. There are different types of crews, so different types of resources actually.
Yeah.
So a typical 20-man crew is known as a type 2 crew, type 2 hand crew. And they possess the rudiments of firefighting. So they have a crew leader and a couple squad bosses and 2 squad, or two mods with 4 squads. It's all depends on how the crew organizes themselves. But that's the basic hand crew. A hotshot crew is a type 1 resource. Same situation. Typically, there's 20 individuals, but the individuals in that crew, they typically have more experience and more qualifications. So my squad leader, for instance, he was qualified to be an incident commander or a division a supervisor, so he could be called upon by the main fire folks, the main instant command, and say, hey, we need one of your guys to be a division supervisor for this aspect of the fire. And he'll say, hey, bye guys, I'm going to take on this assignment. Or it all depends on what their experience is and stuff, but typically more experience, more qualifications than a type 1 hand crew, such as a hotshot crew.
Okay, so the hotshots, they've been doing it for a little bit of time.
A little bit of time, yeah.
And then how long are these seasons?
So I want to say about early spring, so right about now till about November potentially. Well into October. It all depends on the fire season and on the need, basically.
Okay.
The fire season doesn't just end where your duty station would be. It could be if you're a type 1 resource, like a hotshot crew member or a smoke jumper. It could be in Alaska. It could be in New Mexico. So you get done with fire in a certain area of the country, and you could be, still doing it well into the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all right, go Zach.
Sorry, do people drop off? So your crew's fighting in New Mexico, that fire's done. Now you're being called to go to Montana, and do people just say, no, I don't want to go, and don't?
No, because
Okay.
that would, typically not. Yeah.
That's good.
Once you're signed on, you're committed.
Okay.
But each fire, it's expected you're supposed to be there for at least 2 weeks. It's a 2-week assignment, 14 days on and then 2 days off.
Oh.
You need to accommodate your lifestyle for that, for a fire season. That's including if you have family weddings or stuff like that, obviously funerals and stuff like that. They're a little bit more understanding, but it's a commitment for sure.
Yeah, that is. So during that season, are there times outside the 2 days that you have off, but are there like dead times where you're just kind of like, I don't have a fire to like go at, like just kind of twiddling your thumbs?
Yeah, there's that. There's the downtime where you're on the assignment board for, say, the whole nation, basically, and there's nothing going on in Alaska, nothing going on in New Mexico or Arizona or California or Montana, where you're just sitting there at your duty station, like a ranger station or what have you. But typically in those times, you're spending that time training, either daily PTs or you're doing what's called project work, where you're digging line for seemingly no good reason. just to stay in shape, you know.
Yeah.
We had the BLM fire when I was working at Pompey's Pillar National Monument. They came and actually, I think on one of their down days, they came and helped paint fences around the place, like something to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a worker's mentality for sure.
What kind of training? I mean, obviously, other than the like just digging holes or digging lines just to dig a line, what other kind of stuff are you doing out there to keep yourself in shape? Are you doing, is it cardio, weights? Is it
so it's
CrossFit?
Some CrossFit. We have had some assistant crew leaders who were big into CrossFit, and they try to integrate some of the CrossFit elements into the PTs. But I will say on the whole, you're going to do a lot of cardio. So it's not uncommon to go on 6-mile runs a day, you know, every single day, or like a 3-mile run and then head back to the base and do push-ups, flutter kicks. You know, it's pretty intense. And that's not to mention crew hikes and stuff like that, where you give your full load out, you know, you fill up all your water canteens, put in a couple of big bottles of saw gas and all kinds of shit, and you're carrying that stuff up a really steep mountain just for the heck of it, just to stay in shape.
I'm watching Mark right here, and I'm seeing him being like, I chose the wrong career. It's like nature and works out. That's my life.
I mean, you can argue that is my life right now. It's just nature, and then I work out. But I'm not hiking with probably what's close to 15, 20 pounds of just water on my back. So, you know, I'm typically a little bit lighter, but, you know, I do enjoy a good cardio session. I'm doing about 5Ks every other day right now, but
yeah. I mean, it's amazing what your body can really do, because for me personally, it was an eye opener when I first got on the hot shot crew. You know, we were on some fires that it was just unbelievable the amount of work we actually did in retrospect when it's all done, and it's just amazing what your body's capable of. You wake up and your body's just aching, and just like you feel you can't move, you're just gonna die, but you struggle through that, and you can do it. It's all mental. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, I bet. What are you guys doing like food wise out there? Is it just like straight like military MRE stuff, or are you just like downing power protein bars like all day?
So we do get, if it's a bigger fire, say if it's like a big, like 100,000 crazy big fire, there typically will be an incident command post, and they have a caterer. So typically we'll go back to that command post. We'll, you know, throw our sleeping bags in a field like that, and we'll wake up for breakfast. We'll eat lunch in the field. We'll pack a lunch. But if it's a really critical time, we'll do what's called a spike out. So we'll, you know, whatever snacks you have, and then we always are required to have an MRA on hand, a ration. So you pop a rat, and that's your dinner, that's your lunch. And we have a complement of those with our crew buggies and stuff. So it all really depends, but yeah, snacks and stuff, powdered coffee. Then you're off and chug some water.
Oh, that would be the toughest part. I enjoy my coffee as I grab mine right now.
Yeah, I don't think Mark's ever actually been out to Montana. I mean, we were in Glacier one year in late July, early August, and there was a small fire down there by St. Mary's Lake. But like when Sealy was all on fire a couple years ago, and a lot of those places, you'll see those fire camps stationed in those big fields, like by the golf course there in Sealy. What he's talking about with, you know, they have the catering tents and the truck and everyone's sleeping tents, and it's nuts when they get that big, because that was a big one. And going up this summer, or just this last weekend when I was there, I was able to see the mountains, and the amount of trees that just cleared it made these because normally it's just trees all the way to the top. It just looks like kind of like the valley down by you guys in Bitterroot. But it almost made it look like it had more of a rock face because the snow was showing. They look taller and mightier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely beautiful country over there. And they had a fair amount of fire up there as well. So, very pretty.
I mean, I think this season, I don't know what your thought is, but especially here in Montana, there just wasn't as much moisture this winter. And I'm thinking, last summer was a hot summer and then not a lot of moisture.
Yeah.
Fires.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the blame is placed on snowpack. Say if there's not a whole lot of snowpack, people are going to say, oh, it's going to be a bad fire season. But I would say, generally speaking, if there's a lot of moisture in the spring, that kind of spells, bad fire season later on down the road, because they have all that green up. All the grasses are growing super fast. Understory growth is crazy. And then it's like, oh, it looks so lush, but by the time it's July, August, that stuff is dead, crisp and dry. And all it takes is one lightning storm, and you have like 20 fires.
And you're exactly right, because with these weirder winters Montana's been having, I've been noticing we're having these like wetter springs, like you're talking about, where it's going to snow in April, May, but that's also when spring's happening, so everything is growing and it's becoming more water rather than snow melting and going into the rivers. From December storm. Oh, climate change, right?
I never really thought about having a more moist spring, and how the fact that it would be more green. That's pretty solid point. It makes a lot of sense, at least in my head, that would cause a lot of fires.
Yeah, it's and of course it's a multifactorial thing. There's a lot of things that go into burn conditions, fuel conditions, the probability of ignition, if you want to get really scientific about it. But generally speaking, the more there is to burn, the higher probability that it will burn come the time it gets really dry.
Yeah,
that's why you got to manage your forests.
Yeah, which is kind of it's interesting you say forest management, because in some sense, what firefighters do, what they have been doing in the past 50 years or so, that has altered the forest ecology, actually, in a major way. Because if you think of the forest as something that's by itself, it's its own biome, it's evolved with fire. Fire has been there for thousands, millions of years.
Yeah.
People are going out there putting fires out and not allowing the fire to do its thing by cleaning understory out in a low intensity burn, as it would in nature. It really sets it up in future generations to, when it does burns super hot, to where the nutrients in the soil are just burned out. Everything is killed. It's just basically moonscaped out there, and stuff won't grow in there for 20 years, where that wouldn't happen necessarily if no one, suppressed fires. So it's kind of an interesting thing what we do.
Yeah, no, you're right, because you need to. That's why I guess I say management, because you're right, because it's like you have to go in there and burn your own fires to do that natural process. If you want to keep it safe to use, if people are going to go, houses and live in these places or go up in them, you're going to have to burn the undergrowth, and that doesn't happen when it's not happening. Like, especially in California, we've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just high fuel loadings, basically.
Yeah,
it's definitely wreaking havoc on the forest ecology.
That's interesting.
You know what that means? Time for another commercial break, where we get to tell you to like, subscribe, and review our podcast. Whether you're getting that podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, WhatsApp, whatever podcast app you use, you can make it happen.
And don't forget, this is also the time to let you guys know that you can pick up that Wandering Ways swag at the Teespring. Make sure to check it out. The link is in the bio down below or in the episode description. It's even in the show description too if you can't find it in the episode. But you can go on there. You can get your sweatshirts. You can get your shirts. You can get long sleeves, short sleeves. You can even get some socks. It looks pretty cool. Highly recommend. You will be impressing everybody at your next bonfire with some Wandering Ways swag.
You know, and if that's not enough, we're going to tell you to follow us individually on our social medias. You could check me out at the Ruguru or Zach of Wandering Ways. You know, check out the adventure firsthand where there might not be any ads.
Exactly. And who doesn't like some good free pub? I need the followers to go up. So I'm going to throw out Reverend Marcus. Check me out on the Twitter, on the Instagram. I do some cool stuff. So please give me the follow. All right.
We also do not cool stuff.
Yeah. But anyways, let's keep wandering on. We're going to start. We're doing this new thing where about midway through our episodes, we're just showing like kind of cool stuff that happens in nature or just cool nature-esque videos. So I went out and found one, and I'm going to show you guys both it here just as something to lighten the mood.
And this is a new segment. So the first time we did this was last week on the episode that will air before this one. So you're our first guest doing our wonders in nature of watching animals and stuff that we show.
Yeah, and this one's just I call it belly scratches, when you just have that one scratch you just like with this kangaroo.
No, it's a kangaroo scratching his belly.
Yeah, just loving life, soaking in those cosmic rays. Getting that good old belly scratch there. He's loving life right here.
Right?
Cute guy.
Right. Last week was an iceberg falling off a glacier into the ocean and creating this huge wave and shooting up into the air. And this week it's
the glacier was really cool because ice and water have the different densities. So when it falls off the glacier shelf, it will go down because it's got the gravity pushing it. But because of the density shift, it's going to come back up. And so as it came back up, this thing had to have been like, I don't know. I kept wanting to say like it's as tall as the Empire State Building, but I don't think it's quite that tall.
Nor if it was like 2 or 3 times the size of the Empire State Building, he could have been that far off the other way. He was just using the term.
Yeah, because it was like a long, skinny one up. So that's what I kept saying.
Yeah, if it would have been a triangle, he'd been, there's the pyramids. It's as big as the pyramids. Right? No.
But I kind of want to jump back in. We mentioned it about the ecology of the forest and like how we're manipulating it. I wanted to get your side of it, if you thought maybe it was similar to like this regenerative agriculture movement that's going on where we're destroying the topsoil. I want to know if you think they're obviously not the same, but if they're two sides of the same coin, just two different. This one's the forest, that's more the farm type deal.
Yeah, so like I said, the forest has evolved with fire as a big part of how it functions. A lot of the tree species require fire actually to reproduce. So, for example, the seemingly ubiquitous lodgepole pine stands we have in western Montana, these really skinny, really tall pine trees. The cones actually require a certain amount of heat to break open kind of a waxy shell around them to release their seeds. And they grow to burn. That's just how they grow. They have to have some sort of fire to help them reproduce, and to exist as, habitat for other animals. And you can definitely see areas that have not been well acquainted with fire. They just look, nutrient impoverished. There's not a whole lot of wildlife around there. Just really sickly trees that just go to death, basically. Dry out, the needles drop and they just don't burn. It's just
So, the fires are a good thing. I guess my main question is, are we managing it like well, or should we go to more like try and free form, like it was back in the day when there were no real firefighters?
I think the mentality now is becoming more open to the idea of letting stuff burn, especially if it's way in the wilderness. They'll actually classify that as a resource benefit burn. They won't man it. They won't staff it. They'll keep an eye on it, certainly.
Yeah.
But let that thing grow, burn, do its thing. It'll go out sometime in the fall in some cases. But the problem,
so they do let some fires go, huh?
some, yep, if they're way out away from any sort of urban interface.
Interesting.
The problem nowadays is that a lot of people, a lot of critical human infrastructure is within the forest boundary, so there is reason to put it out.
Oh,
We have to do, or not we, but in general, people who manage land, they're forced to put the fires out, and that in turn is affecting the forest ecology in those areas.
interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I like too is Yellowstone. There's a really good example with that fire there, because that's up. That one happened in the 70s, I believe.
Yeah, 80s, yeah.
Yeah, and that one was like they were letting them burn out because that was just what you did with Yellowstone to keep it natural and the wonders it was. But then it was starting to grow bigger than like they've ever done before, and they started to put it out, and Old Faithful, the lodge came at risk, and all these different crazy areas were at risk, and that's why when you're driving through the park, there are those trees that are a little bit lower through sections of the fire, but they have good stories about that as well, and what was actually taught and learned from that fire. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that was a very interesting, that was a huge fire too. That was just, I think it was almost at the point where any sort of suppressive effort was just futile.
Mm-hmm.
The burn conditions were right. It was hot, dry, and it just got totally out of hand.
It really did.
Yeah.
What's the biggest fire you've done? I'm just curious.
I've been on a few big project fires, enough to where it necessitated a pretty complex command structure, they call it. So there's a ton of different fire crews and stuff governed under one ad hoc sort of like fire command center. And those are probably around close to 200,000 acres a piece,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a lot of moving parts, a lot of logistics, and a lot of gears moving,
How many people are on a fire crew generally?
So a single fire crew, typically speaking, 20 people.
Oh, okay.
20 people per crew, but there's, in big fire instances, there's, there could be like, I don't know, 20 crews.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people, in addition to like big heavy equipment, air resources, dropping retardant, helicopters, and all this other kind of stuff. So it can easily become, a big operation.
When you talk about the air resources, I'm just curious for my own curiosity. Do you know how well that actually helps a fire? I don't know, so that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends. If it's like a helicopter with a single bucket that can hold some amount of water in there, it can be critical to aid crews' effort to construct line around a certain aspect of a big fire or a small one, just by dumping strategically placed water to knock down flames, slow the rate of growth for the fire to assist in the whole effort to contain it.
Okay.
So that's the same with with retardant drops, the same sort of deal. You're trying to delay the fire so we can get line around it.
You see a canyon with a lot of dead, dry logs. You want to drop it on that if the fire's approaching. I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm putting it together in my head.
Yeah.
They, I'm assuming they don't drop it like close to where people are, especially if it's a fire retardant, right?
I mean, I have been hit by a retardant before. I've known people have got dumped on before, but it all really depends on the situation and what the people on the ground, call. Basically, anytime there's a air resource involved in fire suppression, it's someone on the ground they're making the shot, making the call on that.
Oh, okay.
They're calling an operations command post, and then operations is getting in touch with like an airplane or a helicopter to deliver water or retardant into that particular area. So there's always that risk of getting hit by retardant or nasty sewage water from a helicopter, or something.
Yeah, because they're just grabbing ponds and stuff, right?
Ponds, yeah.
Oh, that'd be kind of gross.
Yeah, not a good time there.
Yeah. You get hit by a fish.
Yeah, because here in Billings, we do see the planes come in all summer long, going in and out. I'm just assuming that if it is those planes keep coming back and going, fueling up, go. It's a pretty big fire, and that's my assumption, I guess.
Yeah, or they need to be at the ready to, so when they do make that call, they need to make a drop, they need to take off and go,
Yeah.
Missoula is a big place for that too. They have a big, they call it an aerial depot. Wow. So there's multiple different types of planes and stuff. There's like a whole support system for those aircraft there. Those fly hundreds of miles within the region,
So they'll go to like Washington, Oregon if they have to from that Missoula.
Easily.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they'll depart Missoula, and basically set up their logistical support and like, I don't know, Portland potentially if there's fires within the vicinity there, or Spokane or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They're definitely very, very busy.
Well, that museum's there too, right? Right near that area.
Yeah. Which I recommend you should all see. That's a very, very wonderful museum. There's some unique bits of history in that place.
Yeah.
What's the museum?
So it's the Museum of Mountain Flying.
Museum of Mountain Flying, and that's in Missoula?
In Missoula, yeah. It's out toward Missoula International Airport out there.
Oh, okay.
Because they have the smoke jumper exhibit too, right? That's there?
Yep, the smoke jumper base is out there too, so you can visit that, and they have a nice little, historical, visitor center there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's all cool. If you're into that, especially if our listeners are in the Missoula area, going up to Glacier or Yellowstone or one of the parks that they go to and love nature, those are awesome stops. I actually have never been. I'm only really ever in Missoula for the Grizz games.
Yeah, it's a great place to just hang out and check out,
Right? No, I will.
I mean, I didn't know about it until today. So maybe next time I'm out in Missoula area, I'll have to look into it, because Missoula is my favorite part of Montana. So I hope to get back to the area.
Yeah. I take him out. I take him out east too much. And he's over. He's like, nah, dude, get me out of Billings.
It's too flat.
Too windy, perhaps even.
The wind isn't too bad because I'm from the coast, so it gets windy on the coast. But at least it's more hilly. It's not as flat. It's when things get real flat, that's when I start to go pass.
My fiance Thea is the exact opposite. When things get too hilly, she's like, pass. She gets too claustrophobic.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah. But she's from Fort Peck, so it's just nothing out there. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, we're pretty fortunate to be living where we are, in Montana in general. There's so many opportunities to get out and check things out. And it's literally just a drive away. It's not like in certain areas where you have to make a full-on commitment to drive someplace or go someplace to enjoy nature.
Oh, I know. And I look
Very
at like
cool.
some of just like the waterfalls in the national forests or just land like that where it's like that would be a state park in some states.
Yeah.
But it's it's that one.
Yeah, it's that one. Yeah, one of many.
I think that's a unique thing about the West. Most places out west, you don't have to go drive too far to experience nature. Like the bigger cities in like California, you have to drive a little bit more, but even then, it's not like too crazy of a thing. Like LA, it's only a couple hours and you're at Joshua Tree or something like that. So I think it's pretty special about the West, especially a Pacific Northwest. Shoot, you just got to go your backyard most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I think it's owing to the geography, to where it's has been cultivated to the extent in other areas of the country. It's still wild, and any attempt to tame it really is not going to happen. It's just going to be forever wild,
And that's why we know Bigfoot's out there.
He's out there somewhere, man.
Yeah.
Mark's had an encounter, and actually he goes over it with a Bigfoot expert. We interviewed a Bigfoot expert, Rick Rels. He's with I Know Squatch. He's a great guy. But him and Mark talked about Mark's story and broke it down.
Yeah, it was good. I'm a firm believer, mainly because I've seen him. But it was a good one. One thing, kind of the last main question I got. You mentioned you're gonna be you're taking a couple seasons off. Do you miss the firefighting, and then are you looking to gung ho get back into it?
Yeah, I definitely miss that lifestyle. Albeit I was without time in my summers. Basically, I had to devote all my time in the summer to firefighting, but I miss that rigorous lifestyle of just being able to do stuff, with my hands, and to be in great shape for it. But what I miss the most is the crew aspect of it, the people. I definitely miss the camaraderie. I think that is, if anything, if anyone's going to take anything from firefighting or any job really, is the sort of camaraderie that job or workspace affords you. Definitely miss working with some great people. And who knows? Maybe in the near future I'll jump in there. I don't know if I'll go back to the hotshot life though, but some aspect of fire. Who knows?
Following your dad's footsteps, start jumping out of planes.
Yeah, right.
You gotta be a little crazy to do that, I feel like.
Yeah, it's gotta be something. Yeah, something motivating you to really potentially dangerous, like that.
Well, because they do hard landings too, because it's like once you hit the ground, you're going. It's not like, I just finished my skydiving experience. Like, where do I get my photo? No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, yeah, that was it because I got to be that guy. I am in all of these episodes where we got to start wrapping things up, but with all of our episodes and even all of our guests, we have a segment right at the end, our final words. And it's a time for you to say literally anything you want. If you have anything you want to plug, if you want to have a PSA, let people, like maybe there's a cause you're really big about, plug that, just if you have a motivational quote, you can say that. It's literally whatever, anything that you would like. And since you are our guest, Andrew, you're hop right in and be the first one in the final words today.
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of stuck with me, that someone a lot more wise than myself has mentioned, as you actually said, is just to live all you can, and that it's a mistake not to. You only have so much time to live, and so much time to do the things you really want to. And I think you should really, if you have an inkling to do something, you should just do it. obviously don't do something crazy, but I think living all you can, living the best life you can.
I dig it. I like that.
It. That's a good one.
Final word, Zach.
I think let's be smart out there this summer, everybody, because not only does lightning cause fires, but we humans do. You don't want to be the kid in Oregon that's fronting millions of dollars because he decided to drop a match or a firework down the gorge.
Yeah.
We're smarter than that. We've put a man on the moon, everybody. So come on and be smart and don't start fires.
True words. Reverend's final words of wisdom here. First off, I want to thank you, Andrew, so much for coming on today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. I have like this weird infatuation with firefighting, especially the wildfires. So it was awesome to get to talk to you today, hear kind of the ins and outs and things of what it's like. So I really can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you coming on, chatting with us today. Everyone out there, stay beautiful. You guys are amazing. We love each and one of you, but go out, do something nice for someone today. Whether it's just a friendly hello, hold the door for someone, I don't know, give $1 to somebody that asks for money, anything and everything. It only takes a bunch of small deeds, can all totally add up. So, that being said, peace out, everybody.
Peace out. And thank you very much, guys.